Hello, and welcome to the Beeline, the official podcast of the West Virginia National Guard. I'm Master Sergeant De-Juan Haley, Public Affairs Specialist with your West Virginia National Guard. Today on the show, we're joined by Chief Master Sgt. Kevan Williams, the new Command Chief of the 130th Airlift Wing, and Master Sergeant Eugene Crist, the 130th Airlift Wing Public Affairs Manager. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's glad to be here.
All right, Chief. First of all, let's to start out with, let me first say congratulations on your selection as the newest Command Chief of the 130th.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. So we've kind of had the pleasure of working in very close proximity to you, as your office is right beside of us before you were selected as the CE Command Chief, CE Chief. Can you talk a little bit about your career and what has kind of led you to become the Command Chief for the 130th?
My whole career started, back in 1988. Decided to join the unit and found myself a part of what was then the 130th CAM Squadron. I was a fuel cell technician and eventually became a part of my first deployment, which was Desert Storm. And I was just a young man and really began to really fell in love with the airplanes and the systems and those mechanics and what they knew. Eventually ended up as a propulsion mechanic. Loved what I did it for a long time. Just kind of grew in the organization. As I got older, fun fact, my dad was a safety manager for the railroad.
Oh, wow.
And so when the safety position opened up, and I felt like it was a good time in my life to do something different for a change. I'd lost my dad when I was 30. And so just the kind of desire to follow in your dad's footsteps and do what dad does, I applied for the safety position that was open here at the time and was selected, and just kind of things just kind of evolved from there. Eventually was promoted to chief and had the great opportunity to go to CE for a year and serve. And so here I am, and it's been constant change and constant learning. But as my pastor says, if you're not growing, you're dying. So I'd just rather just keep growing and do new things.
Okay, Chief, can you talk a little bit about your some of the priorities you're going to have now that in your new position, like some of your goals, like what you're looking to accomplish?
Yeah, so early on, my first goal is to listen and pay attention, because I really don't know all that I need to do. But from that, I think I can learn a lot of things from our airmen and find out what my priorities should be. And until that time, I feel like it's prudent to just focus on the little things. There are so many little things that we can fix before we start trying to, tackle big projects. And some of those things are like just our PT scores. We can all try to grow and all try to be better. Not that everyone needs to have 100 tomorrow. We can just all try to be a little bit better, right? Take care of ourselves. I feel like the scripts from some of our ceremonies could be tightened up, that they could be improved a little, and those are easy fixes. And then I've got some ideas about approving our Outstanding Airman of the Year and Outstanding Airman of the Quarter, our process, and hopefully coming up with some ideas to increase the amount of nominations. Because at the end of the day, I like to say, let's not get hung up on format over content. At the end of the day, we want nominations about all the great things our airmen do, and we can polish up bullets and make the form look pretty later. But I want to know who's doing great things.
Okay, Chief, we talk a lot about we talk a lot about a leadership as NCOs and as military professionals. Can you define for us what you think leadership is, and like how do you plan to use that as you approach your new role?
Well, that's a really broad statement, and I'm no John Maxwell. Okay? I'm no John Maxwell. I'm just a guy who tries to go out and do and try to grow and try to be a little bit smarter and learn from my mistakes. But if I could try to just say who I am in that, My pastor Mark once said that humility is the fundamental building block on which all character traits are built. And so I think what really builds an effective leader is to come in the door with humility and be ready to serve and be ready to do. And from that yields credibility. So then with humility leads to credibility. And then once you've done all your PME and you've got your things done and you're fortunate enough to have an opportunity to lead folks, it's a whole lot easier to get folks to want to follow you if you've already established yourself as credible and humble.
It's more of like a servant leader.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. You don't have to like pound your fist and
Exactly.
and things go smoother. And it served me well. Yep.
And that kind of leads us into the next question. Let's talk about followership and what does it mean? How does followership lead its way into leadership? And talk a little bit about how, in your career and in your life, how you've, come to believe in followership.
Yeah. So when I first became a mechanic in the engine shop, I was the new guy, and I wanted to prove to my peers that I was worth my salt because the peer group in there was really solid. That the guys in there were adamant about the fact that they were the best engine shop in the world. They'd answer the phone, propulsion laboratory, they were good, and I was new, and I wasn't anywhere as good as they were, and so I really wanted to volunteer for all the hard jobs, be the guy who'd mop the floor, be the guy who'd take out the trash, prove to them that like my selection was not a mistake. I wanted to show I was worth my salt, and so that willingness to follow and learn from them and all they knew, it did serve me when I later became the shop chief, and folks knew what I was all about, and it just made it easier. Even when I felt like it was going to be difficult, it was easier than I thought it would be.
So talking about dads, my dad used to talk about a grizzled old chief that he used to have when he got to his first duty station that survived the Bataan Death March. And whenever he would talk about leadership and being in the Air Force, he would always talk about this chief. Is there someone in your career that you can think of that's kind of defined leadership for you and is basically how you modeled like how you act as a leader?
Since we're going to talk about chiefs, the first chief who really impacted me, his name was Roger Parsons, and he was the chief in the maintenance. We weren't a group then. I think we were a squadron, but regardless. And it was my first deployment, and I noticed how everyone respected him, and all the maintainers would rally around him, and he would just make suggestions and then listen. And I was fortunate enough on my first deployment in Desert Storm to be in his tent, and him. There were guys there like John Wilson and John Nelson and Buddy Palla who were really proud of what they did, proud of what they knew, and they could see that I was hungry to learn and just went out of their way to teach me things. And, I couldn't get enough of it. I was just so enamored by the airplane and what it did and what all these men knew. And I knew right away, like, I want this in my life. This is who I want to be. And but Chief Parsons, like, to me, he assembled that team, and they were all rallied around him. And the camaraderie, like our tent where we all lived was called the Dog Pound. We had a sign outside that said Parsons Pups, and because I was the young guy, my name was The Pup. And so I'd come back from work all dirty and happy, and they'd say, "Hey, pup, how are you today?" And I thought, man, if this is what the 130th is all about, sign me up. I want to be here for a long time.
So I have one question. We've talked about how you've been in since, before the Gulf War. How have you seen the 130th change, and I guess the Air Force in general changed since that time?
We've obviously changed. not in some ways for the better, and maybe some ways not. And that's probably another discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But we definitely, Desert Storm was an eye opener because I don't think we really deployed much before then.
We as the Air National Guard.
We as the Air National Guard, because I can remember but a lot of those folks that I was with in Desert Storm had been Vietnam vets, and so so they talked about Vietnam and talked about some of their stories. As a matter of fact, I flew over with Sergeant and Major Redmond's father.
Uh-huh.
We flew over together, and he told me Vietnam stories, and I'm like 22, 23, and I'm telling you guys, I was scared to death. I was scared to death. Like, man, this is what my deployment's gonna be, you know. But they were just great folks, and with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, a lot of insight.
Yeah.
That was beneficial to me, helpful.
And we've kind of hit on it, but not directly spoken to it. But can you talk a little bit about how the Guard as a family? You mentioned like on that first deployment, the folks in that tent kind of welcomed you, and like how to the new airmen that are in the unit. Can you talk a little bit about how like you want to bring that to them as far as like this feeling as a family and a unit?
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of value. One of the things we provide is that, for the most part, the members of this unit, while we deploy and come back, but in a lot of cases, we're here for the long haul. So it's inevitable that we're going to be attached to one another and care about one another as we should. And so while I appreciate the fact that folks say, Chief, hey, Chief, and I know the intent is to be respectful, but on another level, like there's a part that says like, hey, this is De-Juan and Kevan and Eugene, and they have a story, and they got one another's backs, and when there's a time to be Chief Williams and Master Sergeant Haley, Master Sergeant Crist, obviously we're going to do that. We're going to be professionals. We're members of the Air Force, but we have an atmosphere here that also says, you know what, these are brothers.
Yeah.
It's De-Juan, Eugene, and Kevan.
And we grew up together.
They grew up together, and they grew up in this unit. And that's just straight off the cuff, guys, but that's exactly how I see it.
Okay, Chief. And we've kind of talked about this as well, but what are some life lessons that have helped you get to, or you feel that you've helped you get to this position? And something, let's say, a little bit maybe better is, what would you tell young airmen, something that you learned when you were young, growing up in the unit, that would what would you like to impart to a young airman in the unit?
I have two folks. The first one is my father, and he said, you never quit what you started, and you always, 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 by God, do your best. And then my mother taught me that that when your spiritual priorities are in place, it helps everything else align. It keeps everything in its place, so that life doesn't knock you off your, out of your seat. Mm-hmm. Doesn't knock you sideways.
And just,
I'm sorry, but specifically, I was at a place in my life when I was young, and I was like a college student, and I was studying business at Tech, and I had 3 years under my belt. And man, I was like, I hate accounting. Right. Sorry, Colonel Cato. I hate accounting. I don't think this is me, And I worked at Kmart in Canal City, which is now closed, and that's another sad story. But I wasn't happy with my life and what I was doing, and I was looking for my passion, And so my mom started leaving these Bible scriptures around the house. Like I'd go in to shave, and there would be seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the other things will be added to you. So for me, when my spiritual priorities are in order, like the other things are just the other things, and that is the thing.
Right.
And it has served me so well, very well. I'm sorry.
No. Don't apologize.
Yeah.
So, and we've kind of seen this in our time with you, and when commanders talk about Kevan Williams, I can. There's a couple stories that I can think about talking about how they can trust what you have to say. What would you say to young airmen as far as like how do you build confidence in the people over you when you know when they come to you needing something, like what would you tell a young airman, like these are the things, these are how you build confidence in your officers and like the importance of that?
Commanders expect the truth. They've got to have the truth. They are in a position where they have to make decisions that affect all of our lives, affect the mission, affect all that they're accountable for. And how can we expect them to be good at that if we don't give them the absolute facts, the absolute truth? And that goes for our airmen as well. There's not Kevan Williams' truth. There's the truth, and then there's Kevan Williams' opinion. So I have to wade through that. And when I sit by the commander, the truth is this, sir, ma'am. My opinion is this, sir, ma'am. And that's about as all I know I can say, or to put it, is that the truth has to be absolute first. Yep.
Well, we've kind of exhausted all the questions, but is there anything you would like to add, or anything that you like, a message you would like to give to unit members, like, and just kind of describe, you know, what you're going to be doing for those young airmen, and like any message you would have for them as far as their career and like your intent for, you know, how you intend to lead the enlisted force here at the 130th?
So the leading of the enlisted force is I promise to listen, and I promise to learn, and I promise to strive to improve. And so I hope I'm right in saying this. I don't intend to sit in the office. I want to be out and about, and I want to hear what folks have to say. I want to be able to relay that information to the leadership of the wing, Colonel Priest, and all the way down to the squadron commanders. And I will just encourage new airmen to come in, be humble, be the first one to volunteer to take out the trash, be the first one to volunteer to mop and clean up and take pride in the workplace, because with that humility comes credibility, and with credibility comes really your ability to lead later on down the road.
And we'll leave you with the last word, Chief. Anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to say?
I was really nervous about this, but I feel
Perfect.
really relaxed now, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to just come and hang out and chat. With deployments and our busy lives and stuff, we haven't done this as much as we should, and I hope we can do it some more.
I kind of liken this to skydiving. You know, before you, like, when you get on the plane and, you know, all that stuff, your adrenaline's pumping, and it's probably, like, the most scariest moment of your life. But once you, like, take that little leap and jump off, it's like, why was I ever scared of this?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, well, I never know. Yeah.
I fix airplanes. I don't jump out of them.
Jump out of them. Leave that for other people.
Yeah. That's good. But thanks, guys, really.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. And so that's going to do it for today's episode. For more information about the West Virginia National Guard, you can find us at the web at www.wv.ng.mil, and stay up to date with all the current news of the West Virginia National Guard, and find the links to our social media sites. This has been Master Sergeant De-Juan Haley with your West Virginia National Guard. Have a great day, and on behalf of the 64,000 guardsmen in uniform and 700 civilian employees, and families stay safe and stay West Virginia strong.